Well, good evening. I'm Paul Vanderorph with Ridgecrest Talk, and tonight's episode is with the guest Joe Chesney from Eagle Rafting up in the Kernville, the upper Kern River area. And Joe, thank you for coming with us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit, what's your biggest concern when you're in the rafting business?
Oh, having enough water and making sure that nobody stands up in the water.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I came down through from Tehachapi, coming down through Bodfish, and I took some pictures down there at Lake Isabella and posted those on Facebook. And a lot of people growing up in the area said, wow, that water's really low. And it's just kind of, if you're up there, you still know there's activity going on, but when you're from outside the area, you think, oh, there's just no water. And how much of an effect is that? I mean, how is the weather tying in? We all know California has a drought, but in talking to you, it seemed like you know a lot more about the weather than I do. What's your take on this weather and how that's affecting the rafting?
Well, you know, each year since 2012, the aquifers that hold the water are getting a little lower. So since 2012 to 2013, the river season has shortened a little bit by a couple weeks, and this year, third year of a drought, it's the water's even a little bit lower. You know, we depend on our water to raft and to feed the San Joaquin Valley, water for all the food that's being grown coming off the snowpack of the backside of Mount Whitney. So when there's no snow on the backside of Mount Whitney on this side of the Great Western Divide, then it could be a little challenging.
Yeah, I think we all realize, okay, it's a drought, and that affects everybody. I remember driving down the Central Valley and seeing that. I was talking to a lady from San Fernando Valley who was talking about how she had driven up into the mountains, and her heart was almost breaking not seeing the snowpack that she had seen in years past. And I also recall in one of the gardening classes I took that actually that groundwater in the Central Valley is dropping. And the ground is actually dropping because of that loss of the groundwater. And so it's not just the lack of a snowpack, but there's also demands on the water rights for that Kern River water. Is that something that's affecting you?
Well, we're being on the North Fork of the Kern River, you know, we're above Lake Isabella, which is the reservoir that the water master is releasing into the lower Kern River to feed the San Joaquin water for the vegetables and stuff. So we're not affected by someone taking water out from us. We're just affected by, you know, a lack of snowpack. So if there's not enough precipitation in the mountains, you know, we're going to be a little pressed for river rafting and trying to be a little bit resourceful and whatever it's going to take to be to where we can have some kind of fun for tourists and the locals when they come up to the Kern Valley, to be able to do some sort of activity on the water, whatever it may be.
Right. Now, Kernville is what, probably about an hour drive from Ridgecrest?
Yeah.
And that's just west on the 178. I mean, for those of us growing up here, I remember in the early 70s going up to Whiskey Flat days in February. But it's not a bad drive, and it's a nice area. There's plenty of things to do. But, you know, it's kind of a one-two punch. Not only are you guys looking at the drought and the lack of water, but there's also some problems with the dam up in Lake Isabella. As a local person, what are you hearing about that? What's the talk about the situation with the dam at Isabella Lake?
Well, it's been going on now for a couple of years. The Army Corps of Engineers have gone through and done some studies. There's some water leaking through the dam. They're a little worried about, you know, having a catastrophic failure to where, you know, it can, you know, go through and damage Lake Isabella. They even got emergency procedures in the malls and stuff in Bakersfield, so if something happens, you know, exit plans. But right now the water is really low. There's actually no water on the east main dam. It's literally almost empty right there, but there's still water that's up against the main dam on the west side that feeds into the lower Kern River. But, you know, they got to keep the water low because they're getting ready. They're doing studies right now on a couple rock quarries to figure out what they're going to do with um, the material that they're going to use to build up the dam. So they got a couple studies going on, and they're going to raise the dam 18 feet.
Right. Yeah, I remember going up there and at one of the KRVR meetings where they meet over there at the in the Kernville, right by the chamber there, and it seems like that's a huge project. Going to take a number of years. They're going to rework the dam. They're going to move the road farther to the left. And it's going to have a huge impact, not just on the tourism, but on the local residents, just in the day-to-day business. Your bread and butter is with eagle rafting as far as going down that river. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's your season like? What's a typical season, and what's your season like now?
Well, a typical season, the average water flow on the Kern River is about 1,500 cubic feet per second. That's like, you know, a basketball is like a cubic foot. So just imagine a line stretched across the river, and you say 1,001. Well, 1,500 basketballs just pass by that string going down the river, and that's the average flow. You know, the water will peak like around 4,000 or 5,000 cubic feet per second, and those are really fun rafting flows. And we can raft down to, like, you know, 500 cubic feet per second. But here, like last year, in 2013, the water peaked on the 3rd of May at 1,100 cubic feet per second, which is below the average water flow. And then this year, it was like right around the same, about 1,050, and that was like May 6th. So this year, you know, we were only able to raft till the second weekend of June, where we are normally rafting till the 4th of July weekend or through the month of July.
So instead of going into July, by mid-June, you're not able to do your regular rafting down the river?
Right.
So what do you do to transition from that? Instead of rafting, what are you doing?
Well, what we do is you have to downsize the crafts that you're using to keep the thrills and spills up for the people that are visiting, you know, from all over the world. So we use inflatable kayaks, and when the water gets below these little 2-man crafts that we use, we've been using inner tubes, which we started doing inner tubes last year because there's no water, but people are calling, they want to be on the water, you know. So as long as they understand that it's all about floating and enjoying the scenery and smelling the air and listening to the water, then
I want to get up there right now. But before we look at some video of some people that were going this last weekend, let's go ahead and take a break. This is Paul Vanderorph with Ridgecrest. And we're back with Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Paul Vanderorph with our guest today, Joe Chesney from Eagle Rafting up in Kernville. And we have some video footage of some inner tubers just from this last weekend. I was hoping to make it up, but I didn't. But let's go ahead and get this video going so people can see what it's like up on the river.
Oh yes, this is a trip we did last week, and some people came up from Hacienda out of Los Angeles, Orange County area, but they wanted to bring their dog, an American bulldog, and her name's Sandy. She's never been on the water, never been in a swimming pool or anything, and this is her first adventure. I took one of our old life vests and cut off the little head float that we have so that Sandy could be a little bit more comfortable. But you can tell she's in the water or in the inner tube, and she definitely is enjoying her moment there. But she don't want to get out of the inner tube. She's definitely happy where she's at. But this is basically the launch of our the run that we did. You can see the water's really low. Normally all those rocks that are being shown, like the one right in front of our guest there, that rock is normally covered with water during a normal rafting season. So you can tell the water is really low.
You know, Joe, and looking at that video, and the first thing I think of is all those emotions going through somebody who hasn't gone down the river, for example, that dog. And What was it like for you as a kid? Did you go rafting all the time when you were a kid, or what was that like?
No, when I was a kid, you know, it was, you know, stay out of the Kern River.
And but you were up in the area though, right? Even though you weren't actually rafting.
Right. Yeah, my dad used to take me up there to up to Johnsondale Bridge, where we'd go do some trout fishing stuff. You know, you know, when I was a kid, it was real popular living here in Ridgecrest to get out of Indian Wells Valley and go up to Kern Valley and do some fishing on the lake, or go up on the North Fork of the Kern River, you know, up by Johnsondale Bridge and do a little fishing. Especially in the wintertime, it was really always fun to go fishing up there with my dad.
Right, and it's kind of interesting looking back at the years, because last week I had a guest on the show, Danny the Clown, who is with the circus, the Garibaldi Circus, who had come to town. And going back a number of years, I had actually clowned with your dad, who was known as JoJo the Clown. And I talked about it last week, just what an amazing person he was and how much fun he was to clown with, and just that bubbly energy that he had. But yet you're saying that as a kid, he was telling you stay out of the river, that it's not safe, and yet now here you are taking tours down on the river. How did you transition from your childhood into having an interest being on the river?
Well, I was on the track team, and one of our track team members, Bruce Roberts, asked me if I want to go through guide school with Kern River Tours, you know, when I was a sophomore in high school. And so for $100, I went up there for spring break and froze my butt off and went through guide school. It was pretty fun, you know, but it sure was cold there in the springtime. Wish I would have had a wetsuit.
Yeah, I remember actually whitewater rafting down the Tanana River up in Alaska, and that's we called them ice worms, that they would jump in your clothes and you get pretty cold. But Bruce Roberts is actually at Taft College now. I keep in touch with him. He's an athletic trainer over in Taft, and I can just imagine him talking you into going out and how much fun that would be. But here you are as a high school student, and you go into college. You didn't take up the rafting after that first event, is that correct?
No, I graduated from Chico State, you know, with my bachelor's, and I had a job waiting here at China Lake, you know, as an engineer. So when I came back to Ridgecrest, I'm like going, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with myself on the weekends? And I decided, you know, I'm going to start river rafting again. So I went up to Chuck Richards and went through one of his guide schools, you know, that take a month. And I guided for Chuck Richards for a couple of years before I started eagle rafting in 1996.
So 96, it's what, almost 20 years now?
18 years. I just finished my 18th rafting season.
Wow. And so we were talking a little bit about making those transitions now that you're doing a lot more inner tubes. How long this year do people still have an opportunity probably to go down the upper Kern River?
Well, right now, you know, with that last rain that we had a few weeks ago, it actually brought the water from 100 cubic feet per second up to above 200, 186 I think it was when I left town today, which is still fun, you know. You go up there and jump in an inner tube. The trips are taking roughly 2.5 hours, float down. It's a nice way to spend a couple hours and cool off in the river. It's always nice, like 10, 15 degrees cooler just being on the river than it is being on the shore.
Now, I'm sure there's a lot of safety concerns. I saw how you're putting the life jackets on, and I'm sure you go through a safety briefing. I always recall driving the Bakersfield through 178. The lower Kern River always has these warning signs on there. You know, so many people have died in this river. Be careful. What is it, in your mind, what is it that makes that lower river such a challenge?
It's deception. The river looks calm. You know, everybody knows don't swim in the middle of a rapid, but people are looking at the water where it looks calm, but it's really boiling up and then getting pulled back down. Although it looks smooth and calm by an untrained eye, but anybody who has hydrology skills of knowing what they're looking at, with a trained eye, you can see the water is boiling up, spreading out, and then getting pulled back down. and so people think it looks calm, and they get caught on these little eddy currents where the current is being pulled back down while they're swimming across to the other shore, and find themselves struggling with not being pulled under the water and getting swept downstream into the next rapid.
And what are other conditions that even make that worse?
Drinking alcohol is not good because it dehydrates you. So, and plus it delays your breathing. So you may have water hit you in the face, and you're trying to hold your breath, but you take a breath because of alcohol, and plus you're dehydrated, and your muscles, when you find yourself exerting in the cold water, you went from being hot out on the shore, you jumped into the water, it's cold, and now you're exerting your muscles, and you find yourself cramping. And once you start cramping, you can't swim, and then...
Now, is the upper river different than the lower river?
Yeah, the upper current and the lower current are different. The upper current is wild and scenic. It's the waters come in what Mother Nature gives, and it's got a shape like this.
All right, let me cut you off there. We're going to be back right after this commercial. Well, we're back with Ridgecrest Talk. Your host tonight, Paul Vanderorph, with our guest from Eagle Rafting, Joe Chesney. We were just talking about the dangers of the lower Kern River, but Joe, the question was, and you're starting to talk about that, is what about the upper Kern River? Is that a little bit different, and how so?
Yeah, the upper Kern River is wild and scenic. It's coming straight off the snowpack, and it's got a shape that's, you know, is deep in the middle and kind of like gradually gets shallow to the shore, which, you know, you can step into the water and go into where it's deep, you know, and then you have eddy pools there where the water's slow on the shore, and then out in the current it's fast and the water's being taken downstream. Where the lower Kern River is shaped like a canal. It's shaped more like this, where you step off the shore plump, you know, you're in the drink, and that's what, with that shape, that's what's creating that look of the boiling water coming up, the hydrologies that are going on underneath the surface of the water that you can't see. Right. by this unique shape.
And I guess for the person who's not used to the water, that's the first thing to learn is, hey, be with somebody who has some experience. Now, you didn't just go into it one day. You had talked about how you had gone to a week-long class, and then you actually went to one after college. What about kids nowadays that are interested? Are kids still able to get involved, and how old are they when they typically start helping out?
You know, they're 16 years old. We get them, they're sophomores in high school. All you have to do is show up with a worker's permit. So to get a worker's permit, you have to have maintain a C average in high school. So if your grades are below, not doing so hot in math, you might want to.
You're gonna have to stay off the river.
Yeah, you can't come on. We can't put you through guide school and employ you, like usually for your first job, unless you can attain a worker's permit from your school, which you can only get by a maintained C grade.
So here's a kid who looks like a great fit. How do they hear about the opportunity to be a guide on the river?
Well, usually the majority of the staff that we obtain are from the high school at Kern Valley High School. And it's just word of mouth. All the kids, you know, they all can't wait to be 16 years old to get their first job. So we're normally getting kids that this is their first employment. You know, so we're teaching them job skills, how to be responsible, be a self-starter, and how to skills for being a leadership skills.
So if I'm a 15-year-old kid sitting here watching TV in Ridgecrest, and I'm thinking, hey, I want to go ahead and be a guide, whitewater rafting, is that something that's a possibility?
Absolutely. All you have to do if you're down here in Ridgecrest, you know, you just got to, you know, work with your parents or have some sort of a carpool, get up there on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. It's a month long, and I don't charge for guide school.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big challenges. The farther away you are from that local area, the challenge of transportation, gas is just not as cheap as it was in years past.
Right, that's true. That's true.
Now let's talk about one of the events that you had mentioned that you have every year. It's an event called Whitewater Wednesday, is that right?
Right.
And how does that work?
Well, Whitewater Wednesday is held by the Kernville Chamber of Commerce, the same folks that put on Whiskey Flat Days. And except Whiskey Flat is the second weekend of February. Whitewater Wednesday is right there in the middle of May when the upper current is roaring, and you know, the water's doing really well. And they have a Wednesday where the outfitters donate buses, bus drivers, gear, and guides there, and they go and they take people down the river for the Chamber of Commerce to create some revenues to help pay for the help.
And when is that held typically each year?
About the second weekend of May. Okay. And they have it over there in Riverside Park.
So mid-May every year is a special event, and you end up getting tourists from all over coming out for that one event.
Oh yeah, from everywhere. Los Angeles, Bakersfield, Ridgecrest. You know, this Whitewater Wednesday. You know, you pay you pay to go boat, but it's a reasonable price, and it's pretty busy. They usually have 2 or 3 buses going, and the trips are going out on the hour.
Now, the one thing I really noticed in talking with you is that it's not just a passion for going down the river, but you just have a passion for outdoors. And everybody knows, or they should know, that Kernville is just a great place to go for outdoor recreation. And with that passion, how do we in Ridgecrest get more involved? That's the big question that we want to ask. I can envision, you know, on a Flex Friday, having a down day or a whole weekend that I can go up there, and I may not know how to get involved. I may not know the river or which area to go to. What is your thinking? Like I'm thinking of, if I'm somebody who's inexperienced on the river, but I want to go up there maybe with my wife or with the kids, and maybe work with you to learn more about the river. How might that work?
Well, if you're interested in coming up and having some fun with your family, you can go to eaglerafting.com and give us a call, and we'll take you out on the water and see, start your portfolio in whitewater rafting if you like it. There's a lot of people here in Ridgecrest that are, they're river nuts. They're out there. They're here in Ridgecrest. They got their own rafts. They hardshell kayakers. It's a real fun activity to go do. It's not expensive. You know, you make the initial payment, you go up there, and you got the upper current river and the lower current. And it's kind of like Mammoth Mountain. You know, the farther up the river you go, you know, the more you can scare yourself.
So basically, they come out, they get familiar with the area, they get familiar with the river, get familiar with other things to do, people to talk to, and that could maybe be just like on a Friday afternoon, right, or a Friday morning, and then they might have the rest of the weekend to start exploring, and all of a sudden, I guess they're probably locked, and they can't wait for that next weekend.
Right. You know, once you get up there to Kernville and you get on the water, or go mountain biking or something like that, you're going to run into some locals and people there. You just smile, and next thing you know, you're befriending your next best friend. And there's always something else to do. When you go up there to Kernville and you going upstream, there's a big sign that says Sequoia National Forest, land of many uses.
And that's the exact thing that we're trying to get with Ridgecrest Talk is to recognize what's out there. Now, we had talked about a local group teaching kids to fish that takes some of our kids who haven't had the opportunity to get up there, and we want to get them out to those fun activities. And I just got off the phone with Billy over there, and he said, hey, let's go ahead and arrange a trip where they can come down the water, and hopefully we'll have that. But we're out of time for today, so Joe, thank you for Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Paul Vanderorph. Have a great evening.